Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And to begin, I would like to announce last week's favorite question, and it was Magenta's question about discriminatory laws. And I want to thank everyone who voted, and I want to thank you, Magenta, for asking this and many other interesting questions. And I'm going to send to Magenta my first and second degree audio psychic exercise CDs, if Magenta will be kind enough to send me her mailing information. And today's question is a follow-up to this question on discriminatory laws, and it comes from Zyson. And Zyson writes to ask if I think that these discriminatory laws, which were written primarily to discriminate against gay people, will also be used to discriminate against pagans, and if, for example, pagans might find themselves being refused service if they go into a public establishment wearing religious jewelry or clothing that makes clear their religion. And my answer to this is that I cannot imagine in what possible world it would not be the case that these laws would be used to discriminate against pagans, because we already have this problem in some cases without these laws being there. So certainly they're going to make it worse. I will say that it's nowhere near as bad as it once was, but it could get bad again. And again, I think these are horrible, horrible laws. And I think that we'll be fortunate if the worst thing that happens is somebody being denied service at a restaurant or an auto garage, rather than, for example, medical service. Because we've already seen the example of a woman who suffered a miscarriage being denied medication because of the so-called religious beliefs of the medical personnel, even though I don't know of a single religion on the planet which has anything against miscarriages. But these laws are written to be abused, and certainly they're going to be. And I would like to think that they will be struck down in the courts, and perhaps they will, but I think that it's very tenuous to rely upon that and just say, oh, we don't need to worry about it because it won't stand. Well, sometimes these things do. And I think that it's very important to our future to not just deplore these discriminatory laws, but to actually work against them. And in my library, which of course is currently in storage, one of my favorite books is a book from the 1950s called The Mask of the Swastika. And I've referred to this before on the vlog, and it was written by a Jewish man who had been born in Germany and lived the first part of his life there, and been obliged to flee because of the Nazi rise to power. And he went back to Germany after the war to look up many of the people he had known before the war and see what had happened to them. And one of the people that he talks about, he identifies as Baroness von Westerode, although this was not her actual name. But she was an anti-Nazi organizer, and she went around Germany trying to warn people that bad things were coming, and the response that she got from people was, oh, that couldn't happen here. Oh, that's just rhetoric. Oh, those laws will never stand. And of course, they did. And so I would caution people about taking a laissez-faire attitude toward this kind of law and the things we're seeing in this country. Yes, laws like this may be struck down by the courts. Yes, sanity may prevail, but it also might not. And, I have to say, looking at the political spectrum these last few years, my faith that sanity will prevail is not overly strong, unless those of us who are sane will organize against insanity and will actively oppose it. And many years ago I wrote about the turning of the age. I've written about the turning of the age many times, and one of the points that I generally make is that if we want to see the energy go in a good way, we have to push it in a good way. We have to focus that energy in a good way, because the turning of the age is not always a good thing. And if you look at what happened the last time the age turned, it wasn't universally good by any means, but it was in some places. And what makes the difference is what people do. And if we want a good future, we need to work for it. And if we want to slide back into the Dark Ages, which of course was the product of the last turning of the age, we certainly can have another Dark Age. We certainly seem to be heading for it at an amazingly fast clip. And, there's not necessarily anyone else who's going to prevent this but ourselves. And that's not the most cheerful message I can give, but I think it's the most important thing I can say at this time. And you'll probably hear me say it more than once, We must be the change we want to see. We must build the future we want to have. And what we create is what we will live. Yes, I absolutely do think that these discriminatory laws will be used to discriminate, and that they will certainly be used to discriminate against us as much as anyone else, because we all know that these laws for religious freedom are not really meant for our religious freedom. They're meant for a very particular religious freedom, and definitely not everyone's. So, those would be my thoughts on the subject. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world. Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from witchschool.com. Are you looking for the best in pagan and magical education? With more than 12,000 pages, witchschool.com is like having your own personal library with individual learning assistants to help you study. And Witch School's Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere education system is available any place on Earth, anywhere you are and anytime you want it, as long as you have an internet connection. Witch School's lifetime memberships are a great value. They really do last a lifetime. They've been there for years and they'll be there for years to come. So get your membership today at witchschool.com.